In a Dundalk courtroom, in January 1971, a leading member of the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association, having been caught with a gelignite bomb, and an arsenal of weapons and ammunition, claimed the gelignite bomb and all items that were in his possession, through the work of officers and agents of the Irish state. In the same courtroom, Captain James Kelly, of Irish G2 Military Intelligence, was present as a witness, waiting to confirm the Irish state were, in fact, responsible for the items in this man's possession. The judge directed a jury, if they believed the testament put forward by Samuel Dowling, they should move to dismiss the case against him. The case was subsequently dismissed. In this part of our documentary, we look at the people, the circumstances and the organizations that Samuel Dowling surrounded himself with, and for what reason his associations existed. We would also like to draw your attention to the fact that an Irish courtroom directed dismissal of charges against a man who admitted having a gelignite bomb and other items, stating the bomb was for defense purposes.
Plans called for the march to start and to finish at car parks in Roman Catholic districts of the town. No problem there, nor along the greater part of the route, which is also Catholic territory. But there was a detour planned of about 300 yards over the Sugar Island Bridge and through the heart of the Protestant quarter. And this, while scarcely embattled in any but an historical sense, was the likely flashpoint, if any. And such were the hazards of the situation in a town with a police force of only 30 men, that a great deal depended on the government's decision, their ability to enforce it, and the likely response of the civil rights marchers, led by a local schoolmaster, Mr. Tom Key. How would you react to a government ban on this march?
We've already made our position very clear on this. At the beginning of the week, we decided at committee that we would go ahead with the march, whether banned or not.
And communicated to the district inspector our views on the situation. I asked him to let this peaceful procession proceed along our original route in the name of the people of Newry. And he replied that under the powers vested in him by the Public Order Act, Section 2, that this march could not proceed along that route, and that we could not be allowed, therefore, to go through.
We go to do your duty, Stuart, sir. Get there and line up. Get them there. Hold them up, sir. Hold them up,
Extreme elements, whose aim was to provoke a reaction from the Royal Ulster Constabulary, were amongst the marchers, in huge numbers. For this end, they led an attack on the police lines, demanding they be permitted to enter the small Unionist area. The only thing between the huge crowds of Irish nationalists and Republicans and the small Unionist area were the Royal Ulster Constabulary, who held the rioters back, whilst being heavily outnumbered. The scene you are witnessing was the so-called Civil Rights March in Newry in 1969. This march provided perfect cover for extreme Republicans, whose aim it was to destabilize Northern Ireland. We would ask everyone who watches this documentary to put yourself in the shoes of the Royal Ulster Constabulary being attacked by a huge crowd, having no option other than to stand their ground in protection of people and property.
On November the 8th, 1970, Samuel Dowling, who was chairman of the Newry and District Civil Rights Association, a representative of the South Down and the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association, was stopped whilst driving his car in a laneway near a secluded farmhouse at Mullacrew, County Louth by the Garda Síochána. The guards asked Mr. Dowling to get out of his car. They searched Mr. Dowling and found on his person a loaded pistol. In a brown paper bag inside the car, they found a bomb containing 3.5 pounds of gelignite. In the boot of his car were 3 submachine guns, a .303 rifle, a revolver, 2 pistols and 175 rounds of assorted ammunition. Later, when giving evidence with reference to the find, Sergeant Prenty said that they found a wooden box in a brown paper bag on the seat of Mr. Dowling's car. When asked if the bomb was dangerous, Dowling replied, "It isn't dangerous in its present state or in condition." Detective Garda Haven asked Mr. Dowling to account for the gelignite bomb in the wooden box found in his car, to which Mr. Dowling replied, "I take full responsibility." Detective Haven asked Mr. Dowling to account for the guns and ammunition in his car. Mr. Dowling replied, "I take full responsibility for the lot." In a follow-up search in the farmhouse, 14 others were arrested. Of the 14 arrested, 13 were from different parts of Belfast and 1 was from County Cork. On the 25th of November 1970, 14 of the 15 men arrested had the case against them dismissed, and Samuel Dowling, who was caught with the weapons, ammunition and explosives, had his case adjourned until January the 27th in 1971. Now we're on location in a place called Kilcroney Road, and you may see in the background here the fields. This old country road, as you see it, I mean, it's not really fit for driving on, but what we're aiming to do is to show how secluded this place actually was. Now, not far away from here, we can't actually go to the place, but not far away was the farm in where that Mr. Samuel Dowling was travelling down the laneway in his Mercedes car whenever the guards stopped him and searched the car and found the bomb, and they found the armaments which was in his car. As said earlier, not far away, Dundalk, just a stone's throw up the road across the border, Newry. That's where Mr. Samuel Dowling was the chairman of the Newry Civil Rights. He also was on the board in the South Down Civil Rights and on the board on the Northern Ireland Civil Rights. So a very, very high-ranking member of the Civil Rights Association. Over this way, you know, I'm just trying to pan round. Unfortunately, you'll see like a farm building here back in the background, but not far across there is Crossmaglen. And, you know, as this documentary unfolds, what you will see is Crossmaglen plays a huge part for reasons that will become very apparent as you watch this documentary.
In this section of our documentary, we ask, can it ever be said that a bomb is for defense purposes? Is it ever conceivable that anyone would walk free from a courtroom after being caught in possession of a bomb?
Now, one other interesting fact with reference what went on here at Kilcroney, in Mullacrew, County Louth, not far away from the Newry border, not far away from Dundalk. Not only was Mr. Dowling here, but there were 13 men from Belfast. And whenever we look at the locations of those, from where those 13 men came from, what appears in the information that we have is that they were from various places in Belfast, ranging from, the New Lodge Road area, up maybe around Ardoyne in the Falls Road. But it seemed to be that they were in pairs, largely. Maybe two people coming from the one road. And we'll look at the information in depth at a later stage. Now, Mr. Dowling, he read out a statement to the court in Dundalk. And he said that everything that was in that car, the Gelignite, the submachine guns, the .303 rifle, the handguns, the assorted ammunition, he said that he takes full responsibility for having all of those armaments. But he also said in a statement to the court that it was for defence purposes. Dowling went on to say in the statement that he was taking part in a training operation which was training people to use the bombs, the guns, the armaments. Captain James Kelly of G2 Military Intelligence, Paddy Devlin of SDLP notoriety, they turned up at the court to give testament, to corroborate what it was that Mr. Dowling was saying. Now, reading from the information that we have with reference the arrest of Mr. Samuel Dowling, what you'll note here, which is underlined, is that Mr. Dowling suggested that those weapons were in our possession, were at that time in my possession through the work of officers and agents of the Irish government. So really what Mr. Dowling was saying was that the Irish government, they facilitated the weapons to be there in the first place. Now, did they give them the weapons? Did they purchase the weapons for them? Did they make money available to buy those weapons? They're all valid questions whenever we look at what happened here in November of 1970. The judge advised Captain James Kelly not to speak because of the Official Secrets Act. So that largely would have, silenced Mr. Captain James Kelly. That would have silenced him. What we're pointing out here is, and this is the real significance of what went on in this area. The judiciary in Dundalk, they bought the rationale that the Gelignite bomb was for defence purposes. Now, what we really want to do is to emphasise, when is a bomb ever for defence purposes? When has a bomb ever been for defence purposes? It never was yesterday. It's not today. It never will be tomorrow. Because physically you would have to take a bomb. You would have to plant a bomb. And that bomb is for one reason and one reason only. That's to cause as much carnage as humanly possible. Was that judge in that Dundalk court, was he working in a way that was facilitating people who would go on to murder and maim ordinary citizens in Northern Ireland. Was that judge complicit in, well, if there was gelignite bombs in the future, bombs similar to what Mr. Dowling was caught with? Was that judge, was that court in Dundalk, not far across this way, are they responsible? Can they wash their hands off bombs similar to that in this area, not far across the border, which went off, causing loss of life?
We have learnt that a judge, in the Republic of Ireland, presided over a high-ranking member of the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association, having a case against him being dismissed. Yet he admitted having a bomb and an arsenal of weaponry and ammunition in his possession. 13 others from Belfast and 1 from Cork also had the case against them dismissed. Samuel Dowling, a high-ranking member of the Civil Rights Association in Northern Ireland, stated to the court, "I take full responsibility for all items, and the weapons are in my possession, through the work of officers and agents of the Irish state." Mr. Dowling's associates, 13 from Belfast and 1 from Cork, also had the charges against them dismissed. What we want to explore in the next installment of our documentary: is it ever conceivable that anyone caught with an arsenal of weaponry and a bomb, they are permitted to walk free from a courtroom?
In the 1970s, the IRA carried out a bomb attack on the Le Mans Hotel in Castlereagh, Belfast. This bomb attack has been described as one of the worst atrocities of the Troubles. A bomb containing a napalm-like substance was placed outside one of the restaurants. There was a total of 450 people inside the building. The diners had just finished their first course when the bomb detonated. The explosion created an instantaneous and devastating fireball of blazing petrol, 12 metres high and 18 metres wide, which engulfed the Peacock Room. 12 people were killed, having been virtually burnt alive, and some 30 others were injured, many critically. Some of the wounded lost limbs, and most received severe burns. Many of those who died had been seated nearest the window where the bomb had gone off. The device was a small blast bomb attached to 4 large petrol canisters, each filled with a homemade napalm-like substance of petrol and sugar. This type of bomb was referred to as a box bomb. According to a published account by a retired RUC detective superintendent, this type of device had already been used by the IRA in more than 100 attacks on commercial buildings before the Le Mans attack. The napalm-like substance was designed to stick to whatever it hit. This was a combination which caused severe burn injuries.
There had never been a bomb like that before.
Not to my knowledge, no. Not one that spread a fireball with such a rapid intensity.
Lying on the floor of the ambulance were what looked like 3 charred logs, about 4 feet long, maybe a couple of feet wide. And at first I just didn't register what they were. So I went over and I touched one, and my finger went into, I suppose, 1.5 inches deep. And I suddenly hit something hard, and I realised that this was a human being. But it was quite unrecognisable as such.
When one went into the mortuary and saw what had been a short time before human beings.
A large number of these devices were produced by the IRA in bomb-making factories in the Irish Republic. Can anyone say the Le Mans bomb carried out by the Provisional IRA was for defence purposes? The Le Mans bomb, like every bomb the IRA ever planned, made, transported and detonated, can any rational, reasonable person say a bomb that has been transported to a specific location, it is then armed with the intention of causing unknown carnage? Can anyone say that this type of gelignite box bomb could be in someone's possession for defence purposes?
In the case of Mr. Samuel Dowling, 1 man from Cork, and 13 others from Belfast, they walked free from a Dundalk courtroom.
You find it in documents in 40 years' time, or 50 years, whatever the figure is, 50 years' time. It'll all come out, but I'll be long in my grave at that time. But I can assure you that they did set up the Provisional IRA.
12 weeks prior to a high-ranking member of the Civil Rights Association, Samuel Dowling, being caught in possession of a gelignite bomb less than 14 miles away from Mullacrew, County Louth, where Mr. Dowling was arrested, and just across the border into Northern Ireland. 2 Royal Ulster Constabulary officers were killed by a gelignite bomb. This bomb was planted by the Provisional IRA. The young officers were the first Royal Ulster Constabulary officers to be killed by Republicans during the Troubles, and the first security forces to be killed in South Armagh.
Dawn brought Army explosives experts to the scene, and they quickly established that the blast came from a massive 15-pound charge of gelignite wired to go off when the interior light of the car went on. It wasn't until first light that the full impact of the blast became apparent. What was left was hardly recognizable as a car. Dozens of pieces of wreckage were scattered over an area of 100 yards. The car had been in the lane a few yards from the busy main road since Sunday. Army border patrols had passed it several times a day since then.
Worth re-emphasising, and for reasons that will become very clear as this documentary would unfold. On the 11th of August 1970, 2 Royal Ulster Constabulary officers were killed by a booby-trap car bomb. It was planted by the Provisional IRA near Crossmaglen in County Armagh, Northern Ireland. The 2 RUC officers based in Crossmaglen, Samuel Donaldson, aged 23, and Robert Miller, aged 26, went to investigate a red Ford Cortina which had been abandoned on the Lisarra Road near the village. The car had been stolen outside the Ardmore Hotel in Newry on the 7th of August. Samuel Donaldson, who was murdered in the bomb, was a relative of Jeffrey Donaldson MP, who at the time of making this documentary, from June 2021 until today's date in 2023, is the current leader of the Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland. The Provisional IRA murderers that killed Constable Donaldson and Miller by booby-trapping a Ford Cortina had been made up of people from Navan in County Meath and Inniskeen in County Monaghan. They were under the command of one Sean McStaffin, who was the first Chief of Staff of the Provisional IRA. Now, what we learned in the first part of our documentary was that Mr. McStaffin and a guy called John Kelly, who is completely associated with Captain James Kelly of G2 Military Intelligence. It was Sean McStaffin and John Kelly who originally set up the Provisional IRA in its embryonic form as early as 1968 going forward. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Sean McStaffin, who was involved in the murders of Mr. Donaldson and also Mr. Miller. Sean McStaffin was also working with the Irish State, was associated with John Kelly, who was inextricably linked to Captain James Kelly, to Colonel Michael Heffron, to Charles Hockey, to Neil Blaney, to the Defence Minister of the Irish Republic. That would be one James Gibbons. Now, whenever a Defence Minister is involved in operations across the border in Northern Ireland, is that legal? Is that an act of war? Is that fighting a war by proxy? Is that participating in the murder of citizens of another country? Is that Irish state-sponsored terrorism? And of paramount importance, has the current Irish government got a lot of questions to answer with reference the participation of previous Irish governments in Irish state-sponsored terrorism and the associations that previous Irish governments had with the emerging Provisional IRA from 1968 going forward.
If it was in the area under the Fort Northern control, then I have to assume that it was done with the sanction of the commander of the Fort Northern, who was my father. Yeah.
Paddy Hilary sat in my parlour in Brookhill Avenue in Belfast. Number 11 Brookhill Avenue in Belfast in 1970, in September, after the meetings in Dublin, and reiterated to my mother exactly what they were going to do. And that was all done on the word of Frank Aiken. And that was all done on the word of Frank Aiken.
This is Altnavay Orange Hall. It was built in 1884. It's one of the oldest halls in County Down. It's a small Protestant community, just down to a few families now. Would have been a bigger community until the 1920s, and with what happened at that time, a lot of the families left at that time and drifted away over the years. And what we have up at the front here on the right-hand side is a memorial to the 6 Protestants who were massacred here in 1922. And so I find it's very strong in people's memory. Frankly, there's great hesitancy, even coming towards a fearfulness amongst this local small Protestant community here. There's still reticence about talking about these things publicly. Frank Aiken is thought of in this area amongst the Protestant community as someone who instigated, organised and took part in a massacre of a small, isolated, vulnerable Protestant community.
Around 30 IRA men from County Louth crossed the border to attack the community of Altnavay near Newry. 5 men and 1 woman were killed and more than a dozen properties were burnt down or bombed. The killings that became known as the Altnavay Massacre were one of the most controversial and gruesome IRA attacks of its time. Protestant families were left in fear. This was viewed on both sides of the border as an attempt to ethnically cleanse the Protestant population from the border area. According to the Irish state broadcaster RTE, an IRA brigade report from the time has a section entitled Altnavay Shootings, but the details are left blank. Other files simply refer to a special job. 9 men in total are named in the files as having participated. One of the men involved, James Marin, said the unit was under orders to burn every house and shoot every male. Another man whose name has been linked to the killings is Frank Aiken, who was the commander of the IRA's 4th Northern Division, which operated in Armagh, South Down and across the border in County Louth. He was named as being present. Aiken, who died in 1983, was a prominent Fianna Fáil politician who served as minister in various Irish governments. A member of the Irish government who was responsible for some of the most gruesome murders that the British Isles has ever seen. Frank Aiken, a member of Fianna Fáil, the Hidden Hand, who was in place in 1969 as deputy head of the Irish government. The same Irish government who we have learnt over the course of this documentary they gave strategy to, they armed, they trained and they financed the emerging Provisional IRA.
We have in our possession documents from the Department of the Taoiseach, dated January 1965, which set out a blueprint to encourage Irish nationalists in Northern Ireland to engage in effective political action. They should set up a representative political organisation with a club in every town and village as an immediate field of action. Citizens in Northern Ireland who see themselves as Irish and wish to be part of the Republic of Ireland should begin a process of agitating, using housing and employment as the basis of such agitation.
From 1968 going forward, there was momentum building within the nationalist and Republican community in Northern Ireland to agitate against the state, to overthrow the state that was Northern Ireland and remove Northern Ireland as part of the United Kingdom. But little did Unionists know there was a hidden hand behind that agitation, a hidden hand that was hidden in plain sight as deputy head of the Irish government. That hidden hand was the hand of Frank Aiken.
They gave them money, they gave them guns to get them started.
So, what have we just learnt with reference to the real history of the Troubles? Part 1 and Scene 2, Irish state-sponsored terrorism. As a follow-on from Irish state papers revealing a high-level meeting at McKee Barracks in Dublin, in where the Irish Finance Minister Charles Haughey, the Minister for Defence James Gibbons, Director of Irish G2 Military Intelligence Colonel Michael Heffron, and the top military personnel in the Irish state were present, and where it was agreed that the Irish state would finance the so-called Defence of the North and continue with Secret Service work in Northern Ireland, a region of the United Kingdom and a place completely separate from the Irish Republic. You have witnessed a bomb-making and weapons training facility in Mullacrew, County Louth, being disrupted by the Guards, but only because the IRA terrorists in 1970, some months prior to the Garda intervention at Mullacrew, whilst the terrorists participated in a bank robbery, they gunned down Garda Richard Fallon in the process. From this point going forward, Irish state-sponsored terrorism at government, military and state secret service level were in conflict with the hierarchy of An Garda Síochána, including the Garda Special Branch. You witnessed how the Garda, after finding a high-ranking member of the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association in possession of a gelignite bomb and weapons, and whilst Mr. Samuel Dowling admitted on everyone's behalf, all 15 people at a farmhouse in Kilcroony Road, Mullacrew, they were present and in possession of a bomb and a cache of weapons. They were delivered to a Dundalk courtroom and only for the case against them to be dismissed. In this instalment of the real history of the Troubles, we focused on a gelignite bomb blast less than 14 miles from Mullacrew, County Louth, in a place called Crossmaglen, where 2 young Royal Ulster Constabulary officers were the first members of the constabulary to lose their lives at the hands of Irish state-sponsored provisional IRA terrorists. We revealed the links between the Irish state, government and military intelligence level and the perpetrators of the gelignite bomb blast which murdered the young RUC members. We looked at another gelignite box bomb similar to the one captured by the Guards in Mullacrew, County Louth. This bomb was planted in Northern Ireland by the Irish state-sponsored provisional IRA. We showed just how gruesome those that were fighting a proxy war on behalf of their Irish state sponsors had become. Looking back, how sick were the provisional IRA terrorists that incinerated innocent people in what become known as the Le Mans bomb. On the back of examining the napalm-like substance attached to the gelignite box bomb and planted at the Le Mans Hotel, we posed the one question that should be on everyone's lips. Can the Irish state wash their hands off the actions of the provisional IRA terrorists after all? For without the Irish state encouraging, nurturing, financing, arming, training, including logistical support, providing a professional propaganda campaign and giving the on-the-run terrorists sanctuary, it surely begs the question, if the Irish government had not facilitated the provisional IRA terrorists, how then would they have survived? Coming soon in the next instalment of our documentary, The Real History of the Troubles, and sticking with the subject, Irish state-sponsored terrorism, we look at how that the Irish government, they took people from within the so-called civil rights movement, the emerging provisional IRA, and they enrolled them in the Irish Army. They took them to Irish military bases across the border in the Irish Republic, and they trained them in the use of weapons.